It was 2014 a.m. when Liam hit send. 3 simple words. I love you. A second later, his blood ran cold. He hadn't texted his mother. He had just texted his billionaire CEO, Madeline Kensington. Less than 24 hours later, she stood on his porch whispering a secret that changed everything. Liam Anderson was running on fumes, cheap Robusta coffee, and the terrifying realization that if he didn't finish the Harbor Point schematics by morning, he wouldn't be able to pay for his daughter's asthma medication next month. At 34, Liam's life was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Since his wife passed away 3 years ago, it had been just him and 6-year-old Lily against the world. He was a senior structural engineer at Kensington Global, a titan in the commercial real estate and architecture sector. It was a high-paying job, but it demanded blood, sweat, and absolute perfection. The source of that demand was Madeline Kensington. At 32, Madeline was a billionaire, the sole heir to the Kensington empire, and the current acting CEO. The financial press called her a visionary. Her employees called her the ice queen behind securely closed doors. She was notoriously ruthless, profoundly brilliant, and demanded the same 80-hour work week she put in herself. In the 2 years Liam had worked directly under her division, he had never seen her smile. He had, however, seen her dismantle a senior vice president's career in a board meeting without raising her voice above a conversational murmur. It was a Thursday night. The rain was lashing against the windows of Liam's modest 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. Lily was spending the night at Liam's mother's house, Martha, across town, so Liam could pull an all-nighter for the final Harbor Point submission. His desk was a war zone of blueprints, half-eaten takeout and glowing monitors. At 2:10 a.m. his phone buzzed. It was an email notification from Madeline. From M. Kensington, subject, Harbor Point, load-bearing rescissions, Anderson. I need the revised load-bearing calculations for the South Tower by 6:00 a.m. Do not send the preliminary drafts. Final numbers only. Ensure the subterranean parking matrix is updated. Liam sighed, rubbing his burning eyes. He immediately opened his messaging app to text his colleague David to see if he had uploaded the matrix to the shared drive. Right as he was typing, a text popped up from his mother. Mom, Lily woke up crying. Had that nightmare about the dog again. I calmed her down, but she wanted me to tell you she misses you. She says goodnight. A sudden, fierce ache bloomed in Liam's chest. The guilt of being away from her, of missing bedtime stories for structural calculations, gnawed at him. He quickly typed out a response, his thumbs flying over the screen in his sleep-deprived haze. Tell my little bug I miss her so much. I'll see you both tomorrow evening. I love you. He hit send. He didn't look up. He immediately tobbled back to his email app, intending to reply to Madeline's cold directive to confirm receipt. Message failed to send. Invalid email address format. Liam frowned, his exhausted brain taking a moment to process the error. He looked at his phone screen. He wasn't in his email app, he was still in his text messages. His eyes slowly drifted upward to the contact name at the top of the chat thread. It didn't say Mom. It said Madeline Kensington, CEO. Earlier that week, Madeline had sent a rare, company-wide mass text alert regarding a server outage, and Liam had saved the number just in case. Now, glaring at him from the glowing screen in bright blue was the message, Tell my little bug I miss her so much. I'll see you both tomorrow evening. I love you. Time stopped. The hum of his computer fan suddenly sounded like a jet engine in the silent apartment. Liam's heart slammed against his ribs, a cold sweat instantly breaking out across his forehead. No, 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 he whispered frantically, his fingers scrambling over the glass screen. He pressed down on the message, desperately looking for the unsend option. But his phone was an older model, and his carrier didn't support retraction for SMS text. The message was gone, delivered. For 5 agonizing seconds, Liam stared at the screen, praying for a network failure. Praying a localized EMP would wipe out the cellular grid of the entire city. Then the worst possible thing happened. Right beneath the blue bubble, tiny gray text appeared, read 2:15 a.m. She was awake. She was reading it. Liam threw the phone onto his desk as if it were a live grenade. He stood up, pacing the small footprint of his living room, raking his hands through his hair. He had just texted the most intimidating woman in corporate America, a billionaire CEO who fired people for typos in emails telling her he missed her little bug and that he loved her. He lunged for the phone again, fingers trembling as he typed a frantic follow-up. "Miss Kensington, I am so incredibly sorry. That message was meant for my mother regarding my daughter. Please disregard. Working on the load-bearing numbers right now. Sincerest apologies." He hit send. Read 2:17 a.m. No reply. The silence that followed was deafening. Note, noted, no understood. No you're fired, pack your desk. Just the terrifying void of being left unread by a predator. Liam sat back down, his stomach twisting into painful knots. He knew exactly how this was going to play out. Tomorrow HR would call him in. Madeline Kensington didn't tolerate unprofessionalism. She didn't tolerate humanity in her inner circle, let alone a bizarre, highly inappropriate late-night text. He spent the next 4 hours finishing the calculations, his vision blurring with a mixture of exhaustion and impending doom. He submitted the files at 5:58 a.m. Friday morning at Kensington Global felt like walking to the gallows. Liam wore his best suit, a slightly faded navy two-piece, feeling like it was armor that was far too thin. When he swiped his badge at the security turnstile, a small part of him expected the light to flash red. It flashed green, a stay of execution, he thought bitterly. He rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, keeping his eyes glued to his scuffed leather shoes. The floor was a hive of activity, glass walls and minimalist furniture reflecting the cold morning sunlight. "Morning, Liam," his deskmate Greg chirped, completely oblivious to Liam's internal collapse. "Did you finish Harbor Point?" "Yeah," Liam croaked, sinking into his ergonomic chair. "Sent it at 6. You look like a corpse, mate." "Coffee?" "Just hook it directly to my veins," Liam replied hollowly. At 9:30 a.m., the temperature on the floor seemed to drop 5 degrees. It was a physical phenomenon that always accompanied Madeline Kensington's arrival. The heavy glass doors at the end of the hall swung open, and she strode in. She wore a razor-sharp charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back into a severe, flawless chignon. Her heels clicked rhythmically against the polished marble, a metronome of power. A trailing entourage of vice presidents and assistants flanked her, struggling to keep pace. As she passed the structural engineering pod, Liam stopped breathing. He stared at his monitor, pretending to be deeply engrossed in a spreadsheet. She didn't stop. She didn't look his way. She didn't even turn her head. She walked straight into her corner office, and the heavy, frosted glass door clicked shut behind her. For the next 8 hours, Liam waited for the phone to ring. Every time his inbox chimed, he flinched. But nothing happened. No emails from Madeline. No summons from HR. It was psychological warfare. By 6 p.m., he couldn't take it anymore. He packed his briefcase, his nerves completely frayed, and bolted for the elevators. The weekend was here. He would have 2 days of agonizing uncertainty before facing the chopping block on Monday. He picked Lily up from his mother's house. The moment her small arms wrapped around his neck, the corporate terror melted away, replaced by a fierce, protective love. "Daddy, you look tired," Lily said, her bright green eyes so much like her mother's studying his face as he buckled her into her car seat. "Just a long day at the office, bug," he said, kissing her forehead. "How about we order pizza tonight? Extra cheese? And watch Moana?" "And watch Moana," he confirmed, forcing a smile. By 8:30 p.m. the pizza was gone, Lily was sound asleep in her bed, and the rain had returned, drumming a steady, melancholic beat against the living room windows. Liam was sitting on his worn-out sofa, nursing a glass of cheap bourbon, staring blankly at the wall. "I'll have to update my resume this weekend," he thought. "Maybe reach out to that boutique firm in Chicago." The pay is worse, but a sharp knock at the front door shattered the silence. Liam froze. He glanced at the clock. 8:47 p.m. He wasn't expecting a delivery, and his mother never came by this late without calling. He set his glass down, the ice clinking loudly, and walked toward the small foyer. He flicked on the porch light and peered through the peephole. His breath caught in his throat. Parked at the curb, gleaming ominously under the streetlights, was an extended wheelbase black Maybach. Standing on his small, cracked concrete porch, holding a sleek black umbrella, was Madeline Kensington. Liam's mind short-circuited. This is it, he thought. She came to fire me in person. She's so offended by the text she wants to see my face when she ruins my life. With a trembling hand, he unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. Madeline looked entirely out of place on his porch. She had swapped her charcoal suit for a tailored black trench coat, belted tightly at the waist. The damp night air had loosened a few strands of her usually perfect hair, framing a face that was strikingly beautiful, but hardened by years of corporate warfare. "Miss Kensington," Liam managed to say, his voice barely a rasp. What are you doing here?" Her piercing dark eyes scanned him, taking in his rumpled flannel shirt, the faded jeans, the utter shock on his face. She didn't look angry. She looked intensely calculating. "May I come in, Mr. Anderson?" Her voice was smooth, a rich alto that commanded absolute compliance. "Or do you intend to make me discuss confidential corporate matters on a wet stew?" "Of course. Sorry." Liam stepped back, opening the door wider. Madeline collapsed her umbrella with a sharp snap and stepped into his foyer. She seemed to dwarf the small space with her sheer presence. Her eyes swept over his living room, the worn sofa, the scattered Legos on the rug, the framed photo of Liam, Lily, and his late wife on the mantel. For a fraction of a second, her gaze lingered on the photograph, and Liam thought he saw a flicker of something unreadable cross her face. "I apologize for the intrusion," she said, her tone businesslike, though she kept her voice low. "I assure you, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't a matter of extreme urgency." "If this is about the text," Liam blurted out, the anxiety boiling over. "I swear to you, Miss Kensington, it was an accident. I was exhausted. My daughter was having a nightmare and I was trying to message my mother. It was completely unprofessional and I accept whatever disciplinary action." "Liam," she interrupted. It was the first time she had ever used his first name. It stopped him dead in his tracks. She took a slow step closer to him. The scent of her perfume, something expensive, sharp, with a hint of bergamot, cut through the smell of stale pizza in the apartment. "I didn't come here to fire you over a text message," she said quietly. She looked toward the hallway, where Lily's bedroom door was cracked open. "Is she asleep?" "Yes," Liam said, thoroughly bewildered. "She is." Madeline turned back to him. The icy, untouchable exterior she wore like armor seemed to shift slightly. She closed the distance between them until she was standing just inches away. Liam had to physically stop himself from taking a step back. She leaned in slightly, and when she spoke, her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper that made the hair on the back of Liam's neck stand up. "You are not the first man in my life to send me those 3 words, Mr. Anderson," she whispered, her eyes locking onto his. "But you are certainly the only one who didn't mean it." Liam opened his mouth to apologize again, but she raised a gloved hand to stop him. "And," she continued, her voice tightening with a sudden underlying desperation that Liam had never heard from her before, "I need you to pretend that you did." Liam stared at her, certain he had misheard. "Excuse me?" Madeline took a deep breath, dropping the CEO facade for a fleeting, vulnerable second. "My uncle, Richard Kensington, controls 40% of the board. Tomorrow morning, he is initiating a vote of no confidence to strip me of the company my father built. His entire argument is that I'm unstable, unattached, and planning to move the corporate headquarters to London, destroying our local tax incentives." She stepped back, her posture instantly rigid again, the billionaire back in control. "I need an anchor, Liam," she said, her voice turning cold and pragmatic. "I need undeniable proof that I am deeply, personally rooted in this city. Your accidental text, the timestamp, the intimacy. It gave me an idea. By tomorrow at 9 a.m., the board will be notified that we are engaged." Liam's jaw practically hit the floor. "Engaged? Are you out of your mind? You can't just. I have already reviewed your financial records, Mr. Anderson," she cut in, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I know about the crippling medical debt from your late wife's treatments. I know about Lily's specialized asthma care. Play the part of my devoted fiancé for the next 6 months, help me secure my company, and I will wipe out every cent of debt you owe, and set up a trust fund for your daughter that will guarantee her future." She reached into her trench coat pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, pressing it flat against Liam's chest. "Read the contract. I'll be outside in the car for exactly 10 minutes. If you don't come out, I'll drive away, and on Monday you can consider yourself unemployed." And first soul. Before Liam could form a single syllable in response, Madeline Kensington turned on her heel, opened his front door, and walked back out into the rain. For 5 minutes, Liam stood in his hallway staring at the 30-page document in his hands. The legal jargon was dense, but the core tenets were crystal clear. Madeline Kensington would absolve his exact medical debt, $142,000, within 24 hours of signing. Upon the successful retention of her CEO title at the biannual shareholder summit in 6 months, a secure trust of $500,000 would be irrevocably transferred to Lily Anderson. In exchange, Liam would play the devoted live-in fiancé. He would attend high-profile galas, submit to highly orchestrated paparazzi walks, and lie to everyone he loved, including his mother. He looked at the door to Lily's room. He thought about the terrifying sound of her struggling to breathe during her worst asthma attacks, and the paralyzing fear of his credit cards being declined at the pharmacy. He didn't read the rest of the clauses. He grabbed a blue ballpoint pen from the kitchen counter and scrawled his signature on the dotted line. Liam threw open the front door and dashed out into the pouring rain. The black Maybach was still idling at the curb. As he approached, the tinted rear window rolled down with a soft hum. Madeline was sitting in the plush leather interior, illuminated by the dim glow of a tablet screen. She didn't look surprised to see him. He thrust the damp envelope through the window. "I signed it." Madeline took the envelope, her manicured fingers brushing against his rain-slicked knuckles. "A wise decision, Mr. Anderson. A car will be sent to collect you and your daughter's belongings on Sunday. You'll be moving into my penthouse in the financial district. We need to establish a shared residency immediately." "Wait, Lily too?" Liam wiped the rain from his eyes. "You didn't mention she had to move. If we are engaged, it is entirely illogical that you would live apart from me, and even more illogical that you would leave your child behind," Madeline said evenly. "She will have her own wing. I have already ordered a custom air filtration system installed for her asthma. I will see you Monday morning. Do not be late." The window rolled up, and the Maybach glided away into the night, leaving Liam standing in the storm, his life fundamentally altered. Monday morning broke the internet, or at least the corporate intranet of Kensington Global. At exactly 8 a.m., a press release was distributed to the board, key shareholders, and the financial media. Madeline Kensington, CEO of Kensington Global, announces engagement to senior structural engineer Liam Anderson. When Liam walked onto the 42nd floor, the silence was deafening. Every head popped up over the cubicle walls. Greg, his deskmate, looked at him as if Liam had just taken off a human mask to reveal a reptilian alien underneath. "Liam?" Greg whispered, his voice trembling. Are you a corporate spy? Are you a secret billionaire?" Before Liam could formulate a lie, Madeline's executive assistant, a terrifyingly efficient woman named Beatrice, appeared at his desk. "Mr. Anderson, Miss Kensington requires you in the executive suite. Immediately. We are relocating your workspace." For the next month, Liam's life was a chaotic blur of structural blueprints by day and high society theater by night. Moving into Madeline's sprawling $70 million penthouse was a shock to the system. It was cold, cavernous, and practically entirely made of glass and steel. But the biggest shock wasn't the wealth. It was Madeline. Behind closed doors, the Ice Queen didn't melt, but she did fracture. Liam saw the 80-hour weeks taking their toll. He saw her pacing the floor at 3 a.m., muttering about supply chain logistics and board members who were trying to stab her in the back. The primary threat was Richard Kensington. Her uncle was a towering, silver-haired man with a shark-like smile and a terrifying amount of influence. 2 weeks into the fake engagement, Richard invited them to a private dinner at his estate in the Hamptons. It was an interrogation disguised as a meal. "So, Liam," Richard said, slicing his rare steak with aggressive precision, "a structural engineer. It's fascinating. Tell me, how exactly does a mid-level employee cross paths with the CEO often enough to spark such a sudden and passionate romance?" Liam felt Madeline tense beside him. He reached under the table and gently rested his hand on her knee, a completely unscripted move. He felt her flinch in surprise, but she didn't pull away. "It was the Harbor Point project, Richard," Liam lied smoothly, leaning into the role. "I was working late, running load-bearing calculations. Madeline was the only other person in the building. We started debating subterranean parking matrices over terrible break-room coffee. She was relentless, brilliant, and completely terrifying. I was instantly captivated." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Fascinating. And what about your daughter? How does a child fit into my niece's global ambitions?" Madeline spoke up, her voice surprisingly soft. "Lily is extraordinary, and she fits perfectly." That wasn't a complete lie. The dynamic between Madeline and Lily was the biggest plot twist of Liam's life. He had expected Madeline to treat the 6-year-old like a nuisance or a fragile piece of corporate liability. Instead, Madeline treated Lily like a highly respected colleague. There was no baby talk. When Lily asked why the sky was blue, Madeline didn't say, "Because magic." She pulled out a tablet and explained Rayleigh scattering. When Lily had a nightmare in the new penthouse, Liam woke up to find Madeline sitting on the edge of Lily's bed, reading her a quarterly earnings report in a soothing, rhythmic whisper, until the girl fell back asleep. "She likes the numbers," Madeline had whispered defensively when she caught Liam watching from the doorway. "They're predictable. It calms her." Not. Slowly, the lines of the contract began to blur. Liam wasn't just acting anymore. When he held Madeline's hand for the paparazzi outside a charity gala, he found himself not wanting to let go. When she smiled, a rare, genuine expression that only ever surfaced when Lily was in the room, Liam's chest tightened with something that felt dangerously real. The 6-month mark arrived with the ferocity of a hurricane. The Kensington Global Biannual Shareholder Summit was held in the Grand Ballroom of the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan. This was the night Uncle Richard had officially called for a vote of no confidence. The ballroom was packed with ruthless investors, media sharks, and board members. Madeline wore a stunning, backless crimson gown that made her look like a warrior walking into battle. But as they stood off stage, waiting to be announced, Liam saw her hands trembling. "Hey," Liam said softly, stepping into her personal space. He took her cold hands in his warm ones. "You got this. You built the European division from scratch. You doubled their revenue. Richard is just making noise." She looked up at him, her dark eyes wide and vulnerable. "If I lose this company, Liam, it's all I have. It's my father's legacy. It's the only thing I'm good at." "You're good at a lot of things," Liam said. "You're a great CEO. And you're surprisingly great at making pancakes on Sunday mornings, even if you insist on measuring the batter with a digital scale. A tiny, breathless laugh escaped her lips. Thank you, Liam, for everything. Sweats. And Suru. Before Liam could tell her that he wasn't acting anymore, they were called to the stage. The vote was grueling. Richard took the podium, launching a calculated, vicious attack on Madeline's leadership, painting her as erratic and emotionally compromised. And let us address the elephant in the room, Richard sneered, pointing a finger at Liam, who was seated in the front row. This absurd, sudden engagement. Does anyone in this room truly believe that Madeline Kensington, a woman who fired her last assistant for buying the wrong brand of sparkling water, has suddenly found true love with a divorced engineer in our drafting department? It is a PR stunt, a desperate attempt to look grounded while she plans to sell us out to the London buyers. The Nata. The Ab. Good murmurs of agreement rippled through the ballroom. The board members looked skeptical. The narrative was slipping away. Madeline stepped up to the microphone. She looked pale. The data, the numbers, the quarterly projections, she had all of that ready. But she didn't know how to prove a feeling she was only pretending to have. Liam didn't wait for her to flounder. He stood up, ignoring protocol, and walked toward the stage. Security stepped forward, but Madeline raised a hand, stopping them. Liam took the microphone from her. Buddy. He looked out at the sea of billionaires and power brokers. Then he looked at Uncle Richard. You're right, Richard, Liam said, his voice booming through the speakers. It doesn't make sense on paper. I'm a guy from the suburbs with a mountain of medical debt and a 6-year-old kid. She's a titan of industry, but you don't know her. Liam turned to look at Madeline. The entire room melted away. You see a machine, Liam continued, his voice dropping, becoming intimate, meant only for her, even though 1,000 people were listening. But I see the woman who stays up until 4 a.m. double-checking safety tolerances on our buildings because she refuses to let a single life be put at risk to save $1. I see the woman who learned how to braid my daughter's hair by watching YouTube tutorials in the back of her Maybach. I see a woman who carries the weight of the world on her shoulders and never asks for help. Madeline's breath hitched. A single tear slipped down her cheek, ruining her flawless makeup. 6 months ago, I made a mistake, Liam confessed to the room. I was exhausted, and I accidentally sent a text meant for my mother to the CEO of this company. 3 words. I love you. The ballroom was dead silent. It was a mistake then, Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. But it's not a mistake now. I love you, Madeline. Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just you. The silence held for a fractured second before the room erupted. The authenticity was undeniable. You couldn't fake that kind of raw, desperate honesty. When the ballots were cast, Richard's motion failed dramatically. Madeline retained her position by an overwhelming 92% majority. 3 hours later, the celebrations were over. The penthouse was quiet. Liam stood in the massive kitchen pouring 2 glasses of water. The contract was fulfilled. His debts were paid. Lily's future was secure. Tomorrow they would begin the slow, public process of amicably separating as outlined in Clause 14.b. He heard the soft padding of bare feet. Madeline walked into the kitchen. The crimson gown was gone, replaced by a simple silk robe. She looked exhausted, but the heavy burden that usually darkened her eyes had vanished. You saved me tonight, she said quietly. You saved me 6 months ago, Liam replied, sliding a glass of water across the marble island to her. Madeline looked at the glass, then looked up at him. About what you said on stage. Was that the adrenaline? Or the performance? Liam let out a slow, ragged breath. He stepped around the kitchen island, closing the distance between them. I'm a terrible actor, Madeleine. No, I'm an engineer. I only know how to build things that are real. Madeline's breath caught. She looked up at him, her armor completely gone. Then, "Build something with me." She didn't whisper this time. She grabbed the collar of his shirt and pulled him down, kissing him with the fierce, undeniable passion of a woman who had finally found her anchor. And as Liam wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight against him, he knew that the greatest mistake of his life had turned out to be its greatest masterpiece. Did Liam make the right choice by risking it all on that stage? Or was it a dangerous gamble with a billionaire's heart? What would you have done in his shoes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this incredible story, and subscribe for more real-life drama.